All right, what is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with the final breakdown of 2021. It's not a Bellator. It's not a UFC. It's the good old Titan FC mixed with a little Cage Fury Fighting Championship, also known as CFFC. It's the double Friday Fight Pass breakdown spectacular, whatever you want to call it. I'm here with, of course, it's not a UFC breakdown, so Lucky Lock. I've decided I can't have you on for a UFC breakdown. It just would ruin your brand. But any other fight org, he's always down for, including Titan CFFC. Lucky Lock's picks. How you doing?
Doing great. Looking to close out the year strong here, man. We got a bunch of MMA action this weekend to take advantage of. So let's get into it.
Yeah, we got Game Bread. We got Bare Knuckle MMA, if that's your fancy. I know Dave Van Auken is a big supporter of Game Bread, so every once in a while he'll just send me like, "Oh, you gotta take this guy, gotta take this pick," and I'll kind of follow those. But often it helps to watch Game Bread too. Not quite to the point where I'm going to be breaking them down, but with Game Bread, I mean, you see, I think there's a couple guys we'll be breaking down tonight who had Game Bread fights as their last fights. So it's pretty relevant, although often I feel like these guys are getting matched up with like terrible MMA fighters. Some of these prospects, like one of which we'll be breaking down a little later. I'm blanking, but he faced like a 6-11 MMA guy in Game Bread in his last fight. So it's like, okay, like, but you know, it's the MMA world. 269 obviously was crazy. We all kind of lost some money probably on Amanda Nunes. I know I lost money on Dustin Poirier, who's going to be fighting Nate Diaz next month. That makes sense. But yeah, Titan CFFC. We're going to start with the Titan card tonight. And I did do a little bit more homework on this with all, we'll just with some disclosure. So I'll probably talk a little more about a few of the first fights here. But Lewis, what up, man? Good to see you. Northern MMA. My Cage Warriors compatriot. Good to see you here as always, man. We've been killing it though. LFA. We have been at over like an 80% pick rate since we've started doing LFAs together, so that's great. I think we've been done pretty well on Fury as well, and let's keep it going with Titans. So without any further ado, do have a few dogs here. So as always, it's Aaron the Dog MMA. You're gonna probably hear some noise at times, but do our best to keep it down. I will have time codes available. I think it's like a 7 or 8 card fight main card here, and we're going to start with a very, very good fight, one between two very legitimate prospects who are trying to make their way down to 155. They're making a stop at a catchweight about here. It's a fight between Devin, Dixon of Sanford MMA and Charlie Deca, American Top Team product, also been a protege of Jorge Gamebred Masvidal since making his debut. It's kind of one of the things that's brought up every single Charlie Deca fight. If you do any tape on him, you're going to know that Jorge Masvidal protege, but 27 versus 24 here, nearly 25 for Devin Dixon, 3-1 versus 4-0, so very young in their careers. We've got 2 Florida representatives, Deca out of Miami, the Bull. Be breaking down first here, 5'8", so definitely was a smaller welterweight, definitely more of a stature for 155. Did fight at a catchweight his last fight. It was a loss with Combate against opponent in Eric Elquin, who ended up being a very, very good fighter. 6-0 now. Just had a grappling bout with Jake Shields, but I think Eric Alquin's going to be a name we kind of are familiar with. He did go to a decision with him, and he's a very good grappler. Other than that, no real competition in his pro debut, in his pro career. They both have a loss to John Marquez as amateurs. Kind of funny there. He did avenge his John Marquez loss, but had to fight with Bobby Taylor and Gamebred. That was bare knuckle. This is the guy who was 6-11. So that fight was in June. He stayed active. It's going to be his 4th fight of 2021, which I definitely look at as a positive. I think that's great. He's getting the reps in at 27. I think that he looks pretty good, especially on the ground, facing another guy in Devin Dixon, who I think has a pretty good ground game himself. 9 straight wins going back to his amateur career, 4-0 as a pro. Sanford MMA, really good leg kicks. Was really outsized in his last fight against Brandon Lopez, showed a lot of grit in that one. Brandon Lopez landed some really good shots, fought really well in that one. I think I actually bet Brandon Lopez as a pretty heavy underdog the last time, so maybe that's a little bit of a tip on me. I see how good Devin Dixon is. I really do respect it. I think he's a little bit overhyped, though, and when I saw the odds, the line for this one, I looked at this one as close to a pick'em fight, frankly, and I think it's going to be very close. But apparently everybody and their mother thinks Devin Dixon's going to take this one pretty easily. He's like over minus 550, I think I saw last I checked the odds. And at that price, I'm taking a shot at Charlie Deca. I think these guys are very evenly matched. They're small welterweights to bigger to properly sized lightweights. They're early in their career. Devin Dixon has had a couple close fights his last few. His last one, actually, I should say. And with Deca's last few have been close, and I don't look at that as necessarily a bad thing here. I think that Dixon does show that he's a very good hammer, and I'm wondering a little bit about when the fight doesn't exactly go the way he wants. So I think it's a close fight. I'm taking a gamble on Charlie Deca to start out the night.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. As we kind of alluded to earlier, I didn't tape that much tightness out of the two title fights. Bunch of events this weekend. So I'll have a lot more once we switch over to the CFFC. But yeah, this one, I mean, Devin Dixon is a good prospect out of Sanford, as you mentioned. Obviously, he's undefeated, but I think he's in for probably a little closer fight than people think here. He's anywhere from minus 550 to minus 700 right now. I think the line's a little crazy. Like, I still expect Dixon to win. He's younger, he's bigger, trains with good guys, gets good rounds in with the gym. But I mean, it's pretty much just an unbettable line for him. So if you're looking to bet this one, I think you got to go with the dog.
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot. I really have liked Deca from what I've seen too. And again, the guy he lost to now is 6-0. Really, really good fighter. But I have faded Devin Dixon his last fight out too. It went to a split, so maybe I'm chasing a little bit of the dog that I didn't get the last time. But I think it's worth. I think the line is off here. I'm seeing minus 700. That's insane to me. But we'll move on here to the next fight. It is one that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. We don't need to spend a lot of time on. There's a lot of fights tonight. Dean Barry is 3-1. He's taking on a 6-30 guy with a bare knuckle FC shirt on. What else do I need to say? Dean Barry, I think, is a decent prospect out of Ireland, but also haven't seen a whole lot to be super sold. He is known as the sniper, more of a striker for sure. All of his wins coming by KO. 3-1, lost to a 2-5 guy by rear naked choke. Can't really trust him at all. He's had a lot of fights canceled, including with Mike Jackson twice. So kind of shows the level of competition he's trying to seek out here. So yeah, Dean Barry, not going to bet it. I'm watching this fight. Dean Barry is getting this guy on very short notice too. He was supposed to face a much better opponent. So probably not even going to have a line, but if it comes out, it's going to be unbettable. So yeah, Drew Lipton is the GOAT according to Lewis, but I'm going to fade the GOAT Lipton. Go with Dean just for official pick here.
Yeah, like there's a one line out right now. It's minus 600 for Dean Barry, and I mean, Drew Lipton has been finished like I want to say like 30 times, man. Like I don't know, like you pretty much hit all the points here. I don't think we got.
Yeah, there's nothing to like. Yeah, so he's coming down to welterweight. Dean Barry's going up. Dean Barry just wants to punch somebody, and he's getting his way. Honestly, quite a few of these fights we can breeze through. This next one too. It's a 2-0 Evelyn Martins, who's looked really good. I think she's very legit. She's probably going to be on the Contender Series next year at some point once she gets to 4-0, 5-0. Staking on an 0-1 opponent here in Fernanda Arajo, also 30 years old versus not even just turned 19 in Evelyn Martins, the Spartan here. So out of Miami, she's definitely a prospect. Could be one of these girls we're hearing about quite a bit. Ferdinand Arajo, 0-1, had a decent amateur career. much more of a grappler. Lost both of her fights, one of her fights in boxing by decision. And then she lost to Miranda Barber, who, if you've ever seen Miranda Barber fight She-Hulk, she is not very good. Really is just a big fighter, but 1-2. Her only win was Araujo. Evelyn Martins is going to be a heavy favorite, but rightfully so.
Yeah, Martins is minus 500 right now as it stands.
Yep.
I mean, a little unproven, 19 years old, but out of ATT, she's going to be, I think, quite a bit bigger. We haven't seen Araujo in 3 years, and like you mentioned, that was a loss to Miranda Barber. So, yeah, it doesn't inspire me with any sort of confidence. I feel like I agree with your sentiment there. Martins is the favorite, and she should be.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I'm putting Martins in like my favorite for the Friday parlay of 3 fights from each card. This will be one of them, even at that price. I just think she's going to roll in this one pretty easily. So definitely a legit prospect there in Martins. Hopefully we get some better tests to fully be sure that. Next fight, super bummed. Ryan Hughes had to pull out of this bout. Was really looking forward to him taking on Saul Guerrero. Now taking on Nathan Trepagnier here. Saul out of ATT, 4-1. Really exciting fighter, though. And I've really enjoyed watching his fights within Titan. He's had a few fights there, only 25 years old. As I said, ATT taking on the Oklahoma 29-year-old wrestler in Nathan Trepagnier. Took this fight on very short notice, 5-5 record. Won his last fight out. In MMA, but lost his last 2 in boxing. It hasn't fought since 2018 with Rage in the Cage. Lost to Adrian Yanez, Draco Rodriguez, and then Phil Karapakapa, all by knockout. So 2 of those guys pretty good. Karapakapa also 3-0. So, faced some good competition, but was finished in both his boxing bouts. Saul really well-rounded, more of a grappler, working on the striking, and seems like this could be a good fight to practice that striking. 3 straight wins since his loss to Danny Gonzalez with Titan. It was a split, really close fight, actually. I remember watching that one. He's come back to get one rear naked choke and is showing the striking is coming around, but not facing great competition yet. But I do like Saul. I think that he, is ready to take a step up at some point. But yeah, I like Saul here pretty handily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. Nathan Trepagnier took this fight on basically as short notice as you could possibly take one. And we're looking at a guy out of ATT and Sal who's put together 3 straight wins on Titan. I just, it's just not a great spot for Trepagnier here, in my opinion. Guerrero's minus 600, so not a price that I'm looking to lay, but I do see him getting it done and probably without too much resistance.
Yeah. It's too bad. Well, I was looking to take Saul over Ryan in this position as well at plus 250. So pretty disappointed that I lost out on that, but it is what it is. Anaconda Bets, good luck with your finals, and we got you covered on the tape. I haven't had to do finals in almost 10 years now, so thank God. I don't know how I ever did that shit, but good luck with finals to anybody who's doing those. But going to move on. We'll keep it on rolling here. Asa Tenpow taking on Chris Roman at 145. Asa Tenpow is what's known as a hyped up prospect. He's very, very exciting, really good striker, and he's got a 3-3 opponent here in Chris Roman, who is being brought in as just to show why they call him Tenpow. 32 years old for Asa Tenpow out of Florida Kickboxing Academy, really well-known kickboxer. Chris Roman out of LA Boxing here, 3-3 for the Gladiator. Judging by the record, the guy likes to keep it on the feet. 3 finishes, 2 of which actually does have a submission finish in there. So could be somewhat of an X factor here. He's not been finished in his 3 losses, so he's a very, very tough guy. But 3-3, hasn't fought in 2 years. Was pretty sporadic. Fought in 2013 before coming back in 2019. So kind of a weird career here, and then back after a couple more years here. Taking out Asa Tenpow. That's a lot of belts he's got on. Seems like he's good at kicking and punching people. and you look at his record for the most part, you'll find kickboxing bouts, and most of the time going to the decision. Those very technical. Flying highlights there. Kevin Ross was his last Muay Thai bout. Kevin Ross, very good Muay Thai practitioner. Beat a 2-18 Ernest Walls, knocked him out. So this will be his toughest test of his MMA career, but I think Asa Tenpow passes it with flying colors. It's just that I'm sure that you're going to be paying for it. And it's like minus 900, and I can't do it. What if Asa gets taken down and doesn't know what to do? Like, it's just, if this goes bad, it's going to go really bad for Asa. Most likely he gets a knockout. Like, it's minus 900. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to make any other kind of assumption about this fight, man. He's minus 900 for a reason. Would I ever lay that price? Of course not. Like, it's a 1-0 guy. But, yeah, like, from a prediction standpoint, am I going to sit up here and make a case for Chris Roman? Definitely not. I mean, we saw this guy, like, 8 years ago, and then he comes back like 2 years ago, and, like, now it's been 2 years since that. I just don't think so, man. I think that you pretty much hit it on the head when you said this is a fight just to show them why they call this guy Asa Tenpow, man. I think he's going to pow him out.
Yeah, there we go. Zing. And, he's got a kickboxing win over Nate Richardson. I'd love to see that as an MMA win, because that would give me a little more information. But, yeah, I'm going to take him to beat the Chuck Norris pictured Chris Roman. Just, kind of a good rule of thumb. Next fight, this is a really interesting fight. Roy Bear Echeverria taking on Wascar Cruz here at flyweight. This is a really good kind of late put together fight here, but a good test for Roybert Echeverria. Really exciting looking flyweight prospect here. So I'm excited to see him in there against a legitimate veteran Wascar Cruz here. The Dominican Republic representative here is 12-8, so does fight out MMA Masters, and Roybert Echeverria out of the Goat Shed. This is probably the hardest matchup that a Goat Shed member has had from Titan in their entire history of that gym. The gym is, boast this, undefeated in their fights. They have been very known to cherry pick opponents, though. And so I'll give them credit here. I don't think they've exactly cherry picked an opponent here in Wascar. He is 38 years old, so he's definitely getting up there. But he kind of reminds me of, we talked about Claudio Ledesma last week at one point, and he has a win over Claudio Ledesma. I believe when we were talking about TJ Laramie.
It was the Tony Laramie, his little brother.
Tony Laramie. Yeah, we were talking about Tony Laramie, who took on Claudio Ledesma. We talked about how that was an impressive win. He also has a win in 2021 over Claudio Ledesma afterwards, knocked him out in Combate Global in the second round. Has a lot of knockout finishes. Christian Yana Strela, very good guy also, actually, and guy I've actually gotten to break down some Titan fights with. So knocked him out, known as the Kraken. Wascar Cruz, he's definitely had some losses here to guys like Shojin Mikiki. That's not a good loss at all. It's 7-8 fighter in October, but Victor Diaz, no shame there in that loss. Gustavo Baliart, 7-1 opponent. He's definitely tested himself. He's been around since 2009. This guy's a veteran. He's really, I think, going to test Roybert here. And Roybert, very exciting 6-0 opponent. We got Ecuador versus Venezuela, I apologize, versus Dominican Republic. He's a little bit bigger at 5'5", 7 straight wins. Every Goat Shed member is very confident. Another guy with a win over Ernest Walls by knockout. Ernest Walls just comes in to get knocked out. But you look at the records here. Philip Keller, 2-5, 1-1, 2-15. He's got 2 wins over Ernest Walls, actually. So he does have a 3-0 opponent in Samarak Sabrazan Ulu, and then an 0-2 opponent. So this is by far, I think, his toughest test. I don't know a lot about the 3-0 opponent. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Wascar Cruz. I think the veteran has a savvy here. He's definitely going to be the less athletic, less explosive of the two, but has good finishing ability himself, and just, I think, has a ton of experience. I don't like the level of competition leading up to this fight for Roybert, and I think that he could be in for a rude awakening. So I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to go with the underdog here, I'm sure, in Wascar Cruz.
Yeah, it's the line
fight.
is moving a little bit. Echeverria, I want to say open minus 400. He's down to minus 300 now, so still a pretty sizable favorite. 6-0, obviously a good looking prospect. We got the battle of the Miami gyms here. Goched versus MMA Masters. Echeverria, 26 years old. Wascar Cruz, 38 years old, so the much older guy. He's coming in for, I believe, his third fight in the last 5 months. He honestly hasn't been terrible in his last 5. I mean, he has 3 wins, 2 losses. One of the losses was Victor Diaz. Can't really fault him too much for that one. Last one on Kambache, not really as good. I think I'm going to side with the favorite here. I'm not going to be betting this one. I feel like Echeverria is going to be a little bigger, a little younger, a little more explosive. I don't really like Wascar Cruz taking 3 fights over a 5-month span at age 38. But it's going to be a close fight. This is going to be the toughest one that Roybert has ever had to compete in, for sure. Like, his strength of schedule, like you mentioned, is really, really weak. So that's kind of another reason that I'm kind of going to stay off him betting wise, because he really hasn't fought anybody. But I do think he's pretty promising prospect, and I think that he's probably going to get it done, but nothing that I'm interested in from a betting perspective.
Yeah, totally fair. As a pro, he's only been to the third round or a decision 1 time also. So it's kind of punishing him for getting to quick finishes, but just, yeah, I think that this is, Wascar Cruz knows this is kind of it. Wasn't able to see the last fight and exactly how he lost to that 7-8 opponent. That definitely is a concern for me, but going to take a shot here, and we'll see how it goes. I do like the veteran in this spot, though. Next fight is for the vacant bantamweight championship. It is a short notice replacement. Unfortunately here, we had an injury that forced out Albert Montes' original opponent. Ira Lukowski comes in. We know Ira. We saw him in LFA. We both picked him, I assume, for his LFA fight, and a quick knockout. So, I know I did, and it felt, it was a nice way to start out that card. He's a pretty exciting fighter, definitely a good striker, and out of St. Charles, has a good grappling. 35 years old, though, for Ira Lukowski. Definitely one thing at 135, a little bit of a concern. We got a 38-year-old flyweight, not a 35-year-old bantamweight, taking on the 27-year-old MMA Masters representative out of Venezuela, Alberto Montes. He's looked really good so far, 5-0. So battle of undefeateds, 5-0 against 2-0. Ira's stepping up on short notice here. He's a really high-energy fighter out of Missouri, St. Charles. Julian Aglikis out there, as well as several other fighters. Hasn't faced too great a competition yet. Knocked out at 1-1 Alex Macias in the first round at LFA 114 back in August. Pretty prolific amateur record. Has a few losses in there. I don't recognize too many of the names, but most of his amateur career took place back in 2013. Made the trip back last year. He's had a couple fights. Decent grappler. The striking was quite a surprise in the last one there. Hadn't quite seen that before, but Alberto Montes, the promise, 5-0, another Venezuelan product, and MMA Masters with back-to-back fighters here. Looked really good against Richie Santiago, former Contender Series fighter back in February, getting the choke there. Just, a very well-rounded athletic fighter. Looked to take the step up against 8-2 Richie Santiago, no problem here. I think he's just going to have quite a physical advantage over Ira Lukowski. And Lukowski, just 35 years old. It's a little bit tough late start to the career here. And Montes, I just think is a legit bantamweight, really, really large for the division, and coming into his own. I think Lukowski gonna have a little bit of trouble in this one if he's not able to get this to the ground and stay on top. I think on the feet, the distance and the range of Montes is going to be a lot, and then even on the ground, Montes very well credentialed.
Yeah, we got the vacant 135-pound belt on the line. Obviously, we're supposed to see Ryan Hughes fighting Guerrero here. Fell out. I think whoever wins this one is probably going to get Ryan Hughes next. Kind of the golden boy of Titan at 135 pounds in a way. But so that fight fell out. Montes' opponent fell out. So now he's fighting for the title against a short notice opponent. So everything pretty much worked out for Montes here. I think he's probably happier with this matchup than he was with the original one. He's 5-0, MMA Masters, had Danny Chavez in his corner last fight, 8 years younger than Lukowski, and just choked out Richie Santiago in the first round. That's a nice win. He's very quick, good footwork. He's got a background in Taekwondo, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, good striker, looks very smooth, very fluid movements. Lukowski took this fight extremely short notice. He was an 8-4 amateur, turned pro in 2020. He's 2-0 now. You mentioned the LFA prelim win in August, and he looks massive at 135 pounds. I don't know how easy that weight cut is going to be. Getting up there in years for a bantamweight, which you touched on as well, 35 years old. But he had a really good amateur boxing career, Chicago Golden Glove champion, wrestled in college at an NAIA school. I think he was the runner-up of the Golden Gloves in St. Louis. But yeah, he coaches MMA now, coaches wrestling, coaches boxing, and training out of St. Charles and St. Louis. Lots of good regional names there. Almar Umarov, Charles Johnson, Lucas Clay, a bunch of other guys. I think there's a wrestling path, for Lukowski for sure, but taking this short notice, cutting to 135, no catch weight, 35 years old, and just pile on the fact that Montes is looking like a pretty good prospect.
I think he's going to try to blitz just like last fight.
I just think there's too many red flags with Lukowski for this one for me. I mean, Montes is a heavy favorite, but I'm going with the fresher, younger guy who's been training for a fight.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think Ira just is going to come out and gas pedal 3 minutes. If he doesn't get it, probably some sort of anaconda or Darce, some sort of neck choke ends up tapping out Ira somewhere in the second round. I think. I just don't. I think this is. I do think this is a tough weight cut for Ira, and I think there's just no way he can fight at 145 with his frame. He's kind of small, like frame wise, for 135, even though he's massive. So, I think he's just got to get in there and look the blitz. But yeah, I got Montes as well. I'm at the line. I'm probably going to leave it alone though. And Montes versus Hughes should be great. We're to the main event of the Titan FC card here. This is Delano Taylor taking on Marcus Edwards. This is another one that was kind of put together last minute, right? Or was this the original? Is this the original matchup?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Marcus Edwards to me, maybe I'm just surprised to see him in this spot, fighting for the welterweight title, 5'9", 76-inch reach, taking on the 6 foot tall, I think nearly 80-inch reach of Delano Taylor, the promise. Really good-looking prospect, only 24 years old, 6-1. Marcus Edwards, I apologize, bad intentions here. Got a few amateur belts there. Won his last fight out, although it was in 2017. So that's why I was a little confused. He was supposed to come back last year against Jacob Rosales. That fight fell through, and now he's fighting for the welterweight title after 5 years off. In August of 2017, being a 10-3 Clarence Jordan, got knocked out by Adam Townsend. Pat Healy knocked him out back in the day. He had a win over Thiago Alves in 2015 with RFA. Just want to make sure, is this the Thiago Alves? Nope. It is a different Thiago Alves, Monstrino. So,
I thought that same thing when I saw the record.
That is why we always click on the record, make sure we don't forget about Thiago Alves' 2015 run in RFA. That's like when he was at his prime. So lost to Shane Campbell. So he definitely has some notable losses on his record. Beat Ramsey Nijim's brother, Adam Nijim. Just weird record here for Marcus. He does have a well-rounded game, but he's been off for 5 years. He still is only 32 years old. Delano Taylor, 6-1, absolutely the prospect here, and definitely being set up to win this one. He has had a couple decisions his last two. The win over Michael Cora was really nice. Ezekiel choke to start out. The Luis Gonzalez fight, I actually was very impressed with that, even though Luis Gonzalez had been out for a little while. It's kind of similar here. He's shown he can take on these veterans who've been out for a little while. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's a similar type of situation. I'm just confused why Marcus Edwards got this fight. I think it is clearly Delano's fight to lose, and I got to take Delano here. I think he breaks his decision, 2 decisions with the finish here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a successful first defense for Taylor of the Titan FC welterweight belt. Really big guy, long reach, 77.5 inches, jiu-jitsu brown belt. He's beaten some tough tough opponents in his last 2 fights. Has an Ezekiel choke finish. I mean, he's still young, 24 years old, training at Sanford MMA, moves well. Good jiu-jitsu, decent wrestling, looks to pass guard and advance on the ground. Also will look to do some damage from the top, which is always nice. Marcus Edwards, on the other hand, coming off a 4-year layoff. He used to be a Factory X guy. I believe he's now back at King's MMA, closer to home in California, and has a decent resume. I mean, he debuted as a pro against Justin Gaethje. He was 8-2 after his first 10 fights, lost his next one to Shane Campbell. Obviously went on to compete in the UFC the next year after that. He won some belts in some smaller promotions. He was the Prize FC champion. He's currently 13-5. Last time we saw him, 2017, he was 1-1 that year. Loss came to Adam Townsend, who's a solid fighter. He's now over in ACA in Russia. And, his last win was in LFA, and he had moved up to 170 there, back at 170 here. But he was a 155-pounder for the majority, if not every other fight except these 2. In his career, he was big at that weight, 76-inch reach, skilled striker, long range, but it's hard to pick against the champ in this one. Younger, bigger, more active. He's got grappling upside. There's just a lot to like about Taylor. He's even longer than Edwards, which isn't usually the case in an Edwards fight. And 4 years later, I got to go with Delano Taylor in this one for sure. Defend the belt successfully.
And I get Delano Taylor's not faced like incredibly crazy records, but he's beating some very legitimate veterans who definitely are very tricky and are going to expose kind of prospects if they're not under, like Cora, like Lily, and then Luis Gonzalez, which again, maybe Luis Gonzalez was a little undersized for the 170 division and one of the bigger differences there, but still, I mean, Luis Gonzalez is a tricky fighter. And again, I like Delano here. I'm surprised by the odds, -240. I really do like that for Delano. He's one of my 3 favorite bets from this card. I would take Delano. I would take, Martins and Saul Guerrero. Those would be the 3 I would take. And then I'd pair it up with 3 from the CFFC when we talk about that here next. But yeah, that's going to do it for the Titan FC breakdown show. But we are continuing the show here. We've got the CFFC 104 card also taking place on Friday night. Just in 1 second, let me just get to that. Franklin's very excited about that. But just going to get to that. There's a lot of random fights on this Friday night. We also have the game bred fights on Friday night as well. So UFC Fight Pass is the only channel you're going to need to have on Friday night. These taking place at 7. Main card, I believe, starts at 9. We are going to skip over the amateur fight on the main card. I'm just not going to break down an amateur fight at this point. And then, yeah, look at all the chatting and we got Manny Mayer of MMA Ideas, breaking news out there. Northern MMA, Boston Comments, of course. She's always making her appearance here. But CFFC 104, it's been a good year for CFFC for sure. They've re-signed with Fight Pass, I think, for like 5 years. So not going anywhere, and a really good promotion to get a little head start. And yeah, good matchups. I'm really excited. We're going to start with, I think, one of the best fights of the night on the card, Austin Troutman, not Troutman. So when you're searching for his stuff, don't search for Troutman. You will find some boxer and not Austin Troutman, the wrestler, 3-0 as a professional MMA fighter, taking on the Contender Series, Joseph Pfeiffer, a guy who I picked on the Contender Series against Dustin Stolfus. Was feeling fantastic in that fight. Was winning the first round until he wasn't. Got slammed and broke his arm. Been out since that fight because of that. Dustin Stolfus not exactly had a great career in the UFC, about to lose to Gerald Meerschaert this weekend by submission. So that would be his 3rd loss in a row. But Joseph Pfeiffer, body bags, 7-2. A really, really impressive physical specimen for the 185 division. He's really big. Good frame as well. 6'1", 75-inch reach. Kind of surprised that it's not a little bigger, but still only 25 years old here. Is 7-2, fighting out of Pennsylvania with the coach that he kind of grew up with. So still at a smaller camp. Has a loss by guillotine choke to Jonvin Patti. That loss has definitely aged like milk. That's not a good loss at all, especially by submission. Pretty low level competition. Lorenzo Hunt, Elijah Golby Jr. So some guys with some experience, but not a lot of success. Lost the 2 fights against decent level of competition here. And I think he's facing another really decent competition here in Austin Trotman. Dustin Solfus was able to pick you up and take you down and slam you pretty well. I think Dustin Trotman could have some pretty good success in the wrestling. Brunson MMA representative here. I don't see a lot of guys out of Brunson MMA, but regardless, could be kind of an up-and-coming camp. 3-0 with 1 no contest, 6 foot tall, so about the same height here. He's probably going to be a little bigger. He's fought at light heavyweight and a fight at heavyweight. I think it was contracted for the last one, but it was a 1-2 opponent. Submitted him in a minute. All 3 of his wins in under in a minute or less. So has not been tested. Faced Jay Ellis twice. So we really just don't know how good he is. But he's got really good credentials with the U.S. Trials with wrestling. He looks to be in really good shape. He's only 31 years old, should be in his prime. And Pfeiffer hasn't fought since the injury. We don't know how he's going to come back. And Pfeiffer hasn't faced exactly the most amazing competition either. So, I love Pfeiffer, but can't bet him at this price. I'm going to take him, though. But I think Trotman is definitely if he comes in here and totally out-wrestles him, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. It's probably the most, well, maybe not, but it's definitely one of the more interesting ones on here. It's probably one of the more competitive ones, sneakily, I think.
Yeah.
Austin Trotman, obviously taking it on short notice, so there's disadvantages here, don't get me wrong, but college wrestler, and he was really good, and he didn't stop in college. He was took part in the Team USA World Team Trials multiple times, beat Logan Storley at one of those events.
Exactly.
90 kilogram beach wrestling national champ, 2018, 2019, a ton of just wrestling accomplishments, too many to list. Trains MMA with UFC middleweight Derek Brunson at Brunson MMA. Just an exceptional wrestler. He's 31 right now. You kind of mentioned in his physical prime. He's 3-0 with 3 stoppage wins in 1 minute or less. This will be his 3rd fight in 2021, but he's fought absolutely no one. Like, I'm not going to lie and say that he's fought good competition. I mean, it's right there for you. You can basically just wiki cap it because the records are pretty damn bad for most of them, but I actually got a piece of them at plus 450. I thought that was a little crazy.
It's a great bet.
Like, this guy is a super, super elite wrestler, and even though I don't really think he's going to win, I think the value there was just a little too good to pass up. Pfeiffer, 7-2 as a pro, much more MMA experience. Hasn't fought great competition, but definitely better of the 2. He's only fought 3 guys with a winning record. He's 1-2 in those fights. Obviously, he lost his Souls Foods in Contender Series, injured his arm on a slam. And the other loss that you mentioned, Pati, like a 500 regional fighter, that's not
getting
great.
Subbed by him, too.
Yeah, just nothing that makes me think he should be minus 700, minus 600, minus 500, anything like that in this fight. He did look good in Contender Series until that happened. He was probably going to win that first round. But it's just the price is way too wide here, in my opinion. I think that Pfeiffer's the rightful favorite. I think he'll probably be the better striker. Definitely has a better experience, but just shouldn't be this heavy of a favorite. So I felt obligated to take a piece of Trotman at those numbers. So I took a little stab at plus 450.
Yeah, I'm just going to pass. The numbers have skewed a little more. The money's been coming in on Trotman, rightfully so. I think most sharp bettors, that's the move here. I just wonder if the odds makers were watching the Pfeiffer YouTube documentary that's out there. If you type in Joseph Pfeiffer and watch that documentary, man, it is a really heartwarming story. It comes from an abusive background. He's really, really hard to root against. But regardless, this is gas tank of Trotman should be tested if Joseph gets past the first. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fair enough, but I also think that there's a decent chance that Trotman can wrestle for 15 minutes, even if he doesn't mix in the striking too much. So definitely makes me nervous at that kind of price. I'm surprised at those odds, but we'll see. Good to have Pfeiffer back in there. Next fight, really another 2 straight really fantastic middleweight fights here to start out this card. Miles Lee taking on Earl Small. Yeah, Earl Small. I wanted to make sure not to pluralize that. But two good fighters here, undefeated, 4-0 against 2-0. Miles Lee looking like a specimen so far in his career. 24 years old. Renzo Gracie Philly, which makes their home here in CFFC. That's a really good pipeline for them. 5'10", 2-0, taking on the 4-0 Earl Small, 27 years old. Definitely just a pure grappler. He's finished all 4 of his wins, actually. So kind of like a Derek Minner style grappler here, except he hasn't lost the grappling yet. 8 straight wins going back to amateur. As a pro, hasn't faced a great level of competition. He's got a win over Jay Ellis, too. So everybody get their Jay Ellis wins. He's handing them out. He's lost 81 of them. 15-81 Jay Ellis. 2-1 Andrew Wemsley, his last time out with CFFC. Very good fight there. Got the rear naked choke in the second round. He looks to grapple early and often. He really hasn't shown too many other aspects of the game as a amateur. Mostly finishes with submission as well. So pure grappler here is going to have to get over the physical wrestling and capabilities of Miles Lee, I think, in this one. I think Miles Lee does have good jiu-jitsu himself as well. 7 straight wins, including his amateur career, 2-0 as a pro. Took on Liam Anderson last time out, got a decision there. Both his fights with CFFC this year. Also fought with CFFC as an amateur, so very comfortable with the organization. Tested himself against Sendrikis Dumas, who's a very good fighter. Dumas is as a pro as well. Got the decision there over the good stand-up fighter. I just think he's going to be the stronger wrestler, and Earl Small is sub or bust, and I just think that he's not going to be able to pull off a sub against a guy as physical and as capable as Miles Lee. I think Miles Lee is, a real up-and-comer. I'm blanking on the guy over with LFA. He reminds me of the Ohio State Mark Martin, is it?
Mark is another wrestler, yeah.
Definitely reminds me a lot of Mark Martin, which we've seen in Mark Martin's last couple fights. When it's gotten tough, it's gotten really ugly. So it could be one of these from Miles, but I just don't see how Small is going to be able to exploit it. So he doesn't have – I think stand-ups are really going to be required to beat Miles Lee eventually. I just think sub or bust, I like Miles Lee in this spot quite a bit.
Yeah, Mosley is another exciting prospect from Renzo Gracie Philly. They got a lot of good guys coming through this promotion in CFFC. 7 straight wins, 5-0 amateur, 2-0 pro. CFFC amateur middleweight champ. You mentioned it was a really nice win to get that belt. He's a great wrestler. Like, that double leg is just really difficult to stop. If he gets a hold of you, like, you're probably going up and then you're going down. His striking is still very raw, very rudimentary, and mostly just a means to an end for him to get in on a shot. And like you mentioned, like, he's definitely going to have to work on that to get going, but he's still very young. He's 24. He's got pretty heavy top control. He's not super dangerous from the top position. Like, he doesn't really do much damage from top, but he does just win rounds with control time. I mean, normally he just needs 3 takedowns to get a 30-27. I'm not sure how sustainable of a strategy that's going to be going forward. I'd love to see him start to posture up more and start to land some more damage from top. But Earl Small, you kind of mentioned he's a bit of a sub or bust guy. I mean, he's got 100% finish rate pro and amateur, 8-0 pro and amateur, 7 submissions, 1 knockout. All 4 pro wins or submissions. I just feel like being a grappler isn't a great matchup against Miles Lee. This guy, Earl Small, was a big favorite in his CFFC pro debut last fight, and he won that with a rear naked choke in the second round. Not the best striker. Could well be better than Miles Lee in that department, however, but I think he's probably the better pure grappler, but definitely not the better wrestler. And I think that this is a pretty good matchup for Lee. Probably the toughest guy that he's had to face so far. Going to need to be careful standing. Going to need to be careful in the guard. But I do just see him being able to hold him down for at least 2 out of 3 rounds here. I'd be interested to see the round totals if they come out with those. But yeah, we got a wrestler, we got a jiu-jitsu player. I got to lean towards the wrestler and Miles Lee here. I did put him in a 2-pick parlay.
Yep, minus 240 now. Kind of gone up and down from minus 200 to minus 240. I think it's probably going to settle right around there. I like Miles Lee as well. He is one of my 3 for this side of the 6-piece parlay for sure. Should be a good one, though. Small pulls it off. It's a big win for Small for sure. For this next fight, really quickly, I have to go and just drop off a dog. I have doggy daycare here, and someone is here early, but luckily, I know you're familiar definitely with Charlie Campbell, but if you can just kind of set this up, I'll be right back. About 2 minutes. Problem. Appreciate it, sir.
No worries. So we got Vadim Ogar and Charlie Campbell coming up next. We got a lightweight bout here. Ogar is a 30-year-old Russian fighter. He has a 6-4 record. His last 3 fights have resulted in an L, unfortunately for him. But he started his career off really, really well. 6-1. That one loss was Magomed Mustafayev, who I think we're all familiar with. That's a really good fighter out of Russia. And after a bit of a layoff, he fights Sadiq Yusuf on CFFC, another UFC guy, and he was KO'd in exactly 30 seconds in that fight. Next time out, he loses a decision to a 4-2 fighter in Troy Whitman, and that was in Maverick MMA. That was actually a title fight, so getting good looks here, but just not having too much success, especially not against that next step up. Am I saying that Charlie Campbell is comparable to Magomed Mustafayev or Sadiq Yusuf or somebody like that? Not really, at least not at this point in his career, but I do think that this is kind of a cut above the guys that Ogar's been able to beat, in the lower level fights that he has had where he's been successful. And yeah, after that, Ogar, he doesn't fight again for 3 years. He comes back to fight Daryl Horker, does that on CFFC, gets KO'd in 29 seconds. So the first 30 seconds of fights have been rough for this guy over the past couple of years, over the last couple of times out. And I think his chin might honestly just be gone at this point. And I think that if this was a grappling match, maybe I'd see it differently. But unfortunately for him, there's going to be striking in this one. And it's just like, I don't know how I can trust his chin at this point. If he is able to work some grappling, maybe snatch a leg, I think he could maybe get an ankle lock, get a heel hook. He's good with those leg locks, channel some of his inner Ryan Hall there, could be good for him. But yeah, I just don't know if he can get there with Campbell. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for him. Charlie Campbell is a guy that we've seen kind of a lot from lately. He's big at 155 pounds. He's 6 feet tall, pretty meaty guy. He's muscular, got a good thickness to him, physically speaking, and he hits pretty hard. He was a 5-0 amateur. He was able to finish every single one of his amateur fights for 100% finish rate. He's now 4-1 as a professional, and he's had 2 wins on the Bellator prelims. Both of those were second-round stoppages, and one of them was a win over Nainoa Dung. And that was kind of those ones where I feel like he wasn't really supposed to win that. Bellator really likes Nainoa Dung, and they were kind of trying to push him a little bit. They pushed him a little too far, and he was stopped by Charlie Campbell. And I'd say that Vadim Ogar, has he fought the better competition over the course of his career? Yeah, probably. I would say that he has. But Campbell does have some really good fights under his belt for this stage of his career as a 26-year-old with a 4-1 record. And he's training out of Longo and Weidman and Longo, whatever you want to say. His teammate, Fumi Nakuta, is also on this card that we're going to talk about later. So training out of a good gym. He's got good momentum. He hasn't lost 3 fights in the last couple years. So, yeah, I like Charlie Campbell here. I got to go with Campbell in this one. I got to feel like Ogar is going to want this fight down. Campbell is probably going to want to keep this one standing. Ogar obviously does have a little bit of striking, but it's just difficult to trust him at this point when he's been really inactive and he hasn't won a fight in 6 years. Basically gotten knocked out with pretty much the first punch of the fight and 2 of the last 3 losses. And Ogar has the ability, but I just don't know if I can trust this guy. Campbell has shown some durability to me in the past. He's shown some ability to finish fights. He's shown some finishing instinct, and he's obviously been a lot more active. Ogar just isn't fighting enough, and when he is fighting, he's getting chinned. So I got to go with Charlie Campbell to probably finish this one off. And got to go with Charlie Campbell in this one. It's just really tough to want to trust Vadim here. I don't think that he has a whole lot less left. And you got to wonder really where his head's at this point. He's not competing that often, and Charlie Campbell, I feel like, is a guy that's making a push to break into that next level, whether it be a fight in the UFC, maybe a fight in Bellator. Who knows? He's been in Bellator before on the prelims, so I think that he'll probably find himself in one of the more major organizations soon if he keeps up the pace that he's pushing right now in his career. So definitely an interesting fight, but yeah, gonna have to go with Charlie Campbell to get her done.
You're the man. I apologize. Traffic at 5 o'clock in DC is unpredictable. So with this fight, I did hear the end. Charlie Campbell. I love Charlie Campbell in this spot. I think that this is Ogar has been knocked out a few times now. And I just think a miracle sub is all that he really has here. I think Campbell is way too big, way too physical. He's really getting into his prime. I think he's getting more confident by the fight. He's going back and forth between Bellator and CFFC. They're just kind of each benefiting off him, each promotion. And I think he rolls here. I'm going to go back and listen to your part of this breakdown, but I assume I'm going to repeat a lot of things. So I got Charlie Campbell as well. Minus 350. He is one of my favorite parlay pieces, so I'm going to add him to the parlay piece party. So I got one more to add there to get the 6-piece. But yeah, we both got Charlie Campbell here. I just think Ogar, he's kind of cooked. So going to move on to the next fight, the 125 flyweight championship fight here. I really, really like this fight quite a bit. I'm excited to see this one. Fumi Nakuta. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Nakuta.
Okay, that's what I thought. Jace versus Jason Eastman. We got a good young up-and-coming prospect who looks like he could be the real deal against kind of a gritty veteran who's going to let you know if you're not the real deal in Jason Eastman. So I just think this is really productive matchmaking by CFFC. We're going to find out if Nakuta, the champion, is worth his weight in gold here, I guess, so to speak. Jason Eastman, only 29 years old also. So fighting out of American Top Team versus Longo Weidman MMA. Be breaking down stunning Jason Eastman here, 7-3, 2 straight wins for him last fight in September of this year with CFFC. Very good fight there. Gained the win over an undefeated 4-0 Andrew Richardson by Barbaro choke in the second round. Had a win over a 3-0 Gustavo Villamil in his fight before that. So he's taken a couple undefeated records. Had a split with a 4-1 Joseph Penafil. I don't know him exactly as well, but Devontae Sewell, a split loss there. No shame there, of course. Otherwise, the Kendrick Latchman fight was a close fight over an island, but Latchman, kind of an up and down wrestler himself. So hasn't faced a crazy level of competition, but has been taking 2-0s in his last 2 fights, one with Titan, one with CFFC. Slick Barbaro choke. It's going to be his 3rd fight of 2021 here. Eastman is, a decently sized guy at 5'5", but not by any means, huge for this division. But, he's scrappy. He definitely is looking for the finish at any point. Good submission game, stand-up game. Could use a little work, honestly. Fumi Turbo Nakuta, 4-0, kind of has taken off 9-0 overall between amateur and pro. Out of New Jersey, got the KO in the 4th round of Miguel Jr. Diaz to win the title. Very good fight there. Beat Alberto Trujillo, another good win. Other than that, kind of a similar level here. Nakuta does look like the more physical and athletic of the 2 guys here. He looks a little bit stronger, 5'4". He's slightly shorter, but again, I think he's going to be stronger and bigger here. I think Eastman's going to throw a lot at Nakuta. I think it could be a challenging one for him, but I got a lot of faith. I'm a big believer in Fumi. I like Fumi Nakuta in this spot. I think that, it's not an easy fight at all, though. I think that the odds are making me a little nervous where they're at -400, but I'm going to trust in Nakuta here. I'm going to take him, and I think he gets to finish somewhere inside of the 5 rounds. I do. I just think he's a real capable finisher.
Yeah, I really like Nakuta as well. This is one of my favorite prospects on the regional scene at the moment. I feel like I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but if you were to put him in, like, let's say you put him in for the LFA title right now or another big regional show, I would probably really like his chances to acquire a lot of belts on the regional scene at this weight class. 5-0 amateur, 4-0 pro, Longo and Weidman product. And he just looks really promising. I really think he should have gotten the call for a contender series this year, but we get to see him on the regionals a little longer. I'm not going to complain. I would have loved to see him fight Santo Curatolo for the CFFC belt should he win this fight on Friday. Nakuta, debuted as a pro in Bellator, next 3 fights in CFFC, wins the belt in the 2nd fight, was actually supposed to fight Curatolo before Curatolo got the call for contender series. That would have been a banger fight. But defended his belt with a very strong performance last time out, found the finish, stocky build at 5'4", very strong for the division. If he grabs a hold of you, very hard to get him off. Solid standing, but just really relentless and suffocating wrestling pressure. It's really hard to deal with. I kind of feel like he's the real deal, man. Eastman has a lot more experience, 10-3-1 amateur career with the fight against Matt Schnell there. 7-3 as a pro, fought twice this year, won both. Been kind of up and down before that. You mentioned the losses, Latchman, Sewell, Penafiel, all 3 decisions, never was finished. Not bad losses, really. Opened as a dog in his last 2 fights and this one as well. But he won both of those, actually closed as a favorite in the second one. But trains out of American Top Team, scrappy guy. He can fight. Gave Team Alpha Male fighter Andrew Richardson his first loss in his last fight. So that's what got him this title shot. Pretty decent on the feet. I mean, he likes his kicks, front kick to keep the range, attacks the legs often, comes forward, pressures, tries to cut off the cage. But I'm pretty high on Nakuta as a prospect. I think he's a fight or 2 away from the UFC. Could see him getting called up even with a win here and maybe one more fight after this. But if he keeps doing what he's doing right now, he's gonna get a phone call soon. And I think that Nakuta is just gonna be too strong, too dominant, just push a really difficult pace. And I think that he is definitely live to find a late finish, as you mentioned. So I have Nakuta in my 2-pick parlay here with Mosley.
Yeah, I agree. With pretty much everything you had to say there. He is the 6th part of my 6-piece parlay for tomorrow night. I like Martins, Sal Guerrero, Delano Taylor, and then Miles Lee, Charlie Campbell, and then finishing off with Nakuta. You're going to get some decent plus money. I just think those are my 6 favorites on the fight cards tomorrow night. I really do like those, all those guys in those spots. So Nakuta, I expect that price to keep going up, so I would get it now because I think minus 400, it's going to be probably double that by tomorrow night. Honestly, I think most of the belief is with Nakuta here. Going to move on to our final fight here. Can hear the dogs in the background. They've already started their fight. But we got a featherweight fight here for the title between Eddie Torres and Blake Builder. Interesting kind of fight here. Eddie Torres is a little bit older of a prospect for sure at 4-0, but has looked very physically capable. These fights, by the way, are in New Jersey tomorrow night, and he is New Jersey, 35 years old, Web Fitness and MMA. 145.59, taking on Blake Builder, the 4-0-1 opponent on Minnesota, 31 years old, 5'8", so, 2 decently normal-sized featherweights, but Eddie Torres definitely the much more physical of the 2. Blake Builder, 4-0-1 here. He last fought in March of this year. He has won 11 straight going back to his amateur career, so that's very good, obviously. Beat a 4-1 Kane Lugar by armbar with caged aggression back in March. Before that, had been off for a couple of years. Had went to a decision in his last 3 fights with those. 1 draw in the majority. So definitely fighting very, very close against pretty low level of competition. Not something you love to see. Had a triangle choke, so definitely more of a grappler. Several submissions on his amateur career as well. Stand up is definitely what keeps this closer for him. Eddie Torres, 4-0, very good, still in very good shape, very physically capable at 35 years old, still 5'9", 7 straight wins going back to his amateur career as well. Web Fitness MMA beat a 2-1 opponent by decisions last time out, knocked out a 1-0 Jake Schilling. Not really faced a crazy level of competition, definitely has a little bit better stand-up, also a good competitive grappler. I think this fight could be pretty close. I just think Eddie Torres is a little bit better everywhere over him. Trains with Aljo, as many's pointing out, at Sarah Longo, as well as Mirab, all those guys. So he's definitely getting in good run with guys his size, has better training partners. I just think he's a little bit better everywhere than Blake Builder. I think there's a tough matchup for Builder. I'm going to give it to Eddie Torres.
Yeah, so he's looking to claim the title that his teammate at Renzo Gracie Philly, Pat Sabatini, vacated. And yeah, we've talked about Renzo Gracie Philly a couple times. It's a really good gym that's having a lot of success at all levels of the sport. They got something special going there for sure. So Torres is 35. You would not know that from looking at him. He's in really great shape. Turned pro about 2.5 years ago. Normally you don't see guys turn pro that late, but he has 4 fights. He's won all 4. He's in his 5th fight fighting for a title. So what do I know? It's clearly working for the guy. He had a kind of a sporadic amateur career, but he's fought his entire pro career in CFFC, and he's a big fan favorite on this show. He originally was going to move to 155 just because Sabatini was holding a 145 belt, didn't want to fight his teammate, but Sabatini got that call from the UFC, and Torres decided he's going to pursue the featherweight belt. And yeah, like this guy is huge. He said that before his last fight, when he signed the contract, he was 191 pounds, had to make 145 for that one. Just insane. He was able to have a lot of wrestling success against a wrestler in Rojas there. Doesn't really mind being on his back too much. He's pretty confident in his sub game, good arm bars, good triangles from that position. And working in the gym with Sean Brady, he really credits that for some of his developments in the wrestling. And I'd say that just him being completely massive helps him a lot there too. And he's got some kicks, does some damage to the body and legs with those, has some flashy ones too. We didn't really see a lot of that last time we saw him, but he's a decent striker, kind of uses the jab to find range, likes to launch that overhand right. I think that a higher level striker would give him kind of a tougher time standing. I think that Builder is going to give him a bit of a tough time on the feet, but I really like Torres' physicality and just his size. And I think this is going to be the toughest fight for Torres. I mean, Builder is good. He's the younger fighter by 4 years. He was an undefeated amateur. He's undefeated as a pro with that one drop, 4-0-1, good grappler, 6 submissions across amateur and pro competition. I think that he could be the better striker here. Does have a kind of a boxing and Muay Thai background, pretty well-rounded guy. Hasn't really been fighting on shows that I would say are as strong overall as CFFC, but I do think he probably has the experience advantage. He's fought more experienced guys, just fought more guys, period. In his last fight, Kane Luger, that's a good win, good fighter there to beat. And probably not as massive as Eddie Torres is, but he's also a big dude at 145 pounds, 2 physical guys here. I think this could be close. I think it's closer than what the line is suggesting to us. I'm really not interested in Torres at this price, but I do got to lean his way, getting in training with high-level guys at Renzo Gracie Philly. I think he's going to have to be careful on the feet, but I do think that Torres has what it takes to win here. So going with Eddie Torres in this one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, the weigh-ins. Torres only a minus 225 favorite. So, yeah, I mean, odds makers expect this to be pretty close. Definitely a big test. And, it's always dicey when you're seeing big tests from an unexperienced 35-year-old because the big test, walking around at that larger weight, having to make 145, not 146 with it being a championship fight. These are all just things that add to the uncertainty here, but I'm going with Torres as well. He won't be in my 6 parlay. As I said, the 6 is Martin Salguero, Delano from Titan, and then Miles Lee, Charlie Campbell, and then finishing it off with Nakuta from CFFC. So those are my 6 most confident favorites, but I do like Eddie Torres as well. I think Trotman's a live dog. Otherwise, I kind of expect the favorites to roll on CFFC. I think there's a couple closer ones with Titan perhaps. But yeah, that's going to do it. That is the Titan FC CFFC breakdown show, the final breakdown of the year on the channel. It's been a kind of a crazy 4 months to end the year. I didn't really even think I was going to have a channel throughout the year. And then all of a sudden, halfway through the year, get the kind of, the inspiration from Boston Comments to basically go out on my own. I'm really glad I did that because the old channel I was on, I would not be doing breakdowns anymore as they aren't a channel anymore. But either way, it's been a blast. 313 subscribers. Really appreciate that. I don't really care about those numbers, but I also kind of appreciate being kind of recognized. I work really hard at this, and I try to work with really good people like Lucky Locks here, Norton MMA, Lewis. I've been lucky enough to work with, obviously, Boston Comments, Bunny, Dave Van Auken, Brian Battle, all the above. I've gotten to work with some amazing people. It's been a good year. Looking forward to next year. But I will see you guys in 2022. It's a couple weeks off of breakdowns for me, but me and Lucky will be back with CFFC, Titan, Cage Fury, all the ones that aren't with the UFC in front of them. We'll be there for those. I'll be back with the UFC as well. Enjoy the fights tomorrow. Enjoy the fights on Saturday. And keep taking care of each other up there. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. See you guys in 2022. Peace out.